The best content in the world can perform miserably if it's missing this vital piece of the puzzle. Stay tuned. In this episode, I'm talking all about why your content is nothing without effective distribution. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, founder of Content 10x, and in this episode, I'm discussing why effectively distributing your content is everything. Yes, it's so important. Now, there are plenty of vital moving parts to a highly effective content marketing strategy. You've got content creation, content repurposing, of course, my favorite thing, content distribution, analysis, and so much more that helps your content reach wide audiences. It gets you known and builds your brand. Now, I spend lots of time talking about creating content and content repurposing, none of which are worth doing without content distribution as well. So today, I really wanted to take the time in this episode to drill into exactly why you need to be as focused on distribution as you do all other parts of the content strategy. Now, I want us to take a moment to think about real physical products, because if your business sells products, then you need a distribution strategy, because without a distribution strategy, you don't have a business, because even the best product in the world is no good without being able to get it out into the world, into the masses, so people can buy it. And then in contrast, a breakthrough distribution channel can change everything for a product-based business. For example, I like to watch the TV show Dragon's Den. I used to watch it all the time, not so much anymore, but I do still like the show. And there's the US equivalent Shark Tank as well. I'm sure you're familiar. It's basically a show where entrepreneurs pitch for an investment in their business from, successful, rich entrepreneurs who are looking to invest in smaller businesses. And very often, it's not really about the investment money, because let's face it, many of them who are on the show could probably have got investment elsewhere or even taken a bank loan out. So sometimes the amounts are really small, like $30,000, £30,000. So it's less about the money often, and it's about getting the advice and support from the person who invested. Also, they might see them as somebody who they can get publicity from that celebrity, but also the publicity of being on the show, like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. It might actually say on marketing material, or even the products are seen on Dragon's Den. But very often, it's about tapping into their network and gaining access to distribution channels that can help businesses flourish. As the saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in this case, it's the ability to leverage distribution channels that they have access to through who they know. So if the sharks or dragons or investors that they team up with can get them into Tesco or Selfridges or Costco, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, then imagine how much further the product would go compared to them just listing on their website and trying it in physical shops without a big distribution strategy. So this is why so many brands sell their products through other brands. For example, we looked at the brand Deliciously Ella in our It Started With Content case study in episode 193 of the Content 10x podcast. One of the amazing ways Ella Mills grew her brand was to produce these wonderful food products and then sell them, yes, through her website to that limited audience, bigger audience, but limited all the same. But then she leveraged the distribution channel of a huge UK supermarket chain by teaming up with them to get her products out to a much wider audience. And just coming back to the Shark Tank and Dragon's Den example, distribution challenges are often the reason that those dragons and sharks and investors don't invest too. They'll say, you've got a brilliant product, but I just don't see the plan to get this to market. I don't see the stores taking it on board for whatever reason it may be. So what does all of this have to do with content distribution? Well, in this example, you can see how distribution changes the game completely. By selling products on your website, you're targeting a limited audience, or maybe not even a website, by selling your product in one single shop on your local high street or shopping mall. It's nice to be somewhere, but imagine if your product could get into hundreds or thousands of stores and massive online retailers. Because if you find a new distribution avenue, you can get access to potentially a huge new audience, and it's a total game changer. Now apply this same thought to your content. All content needs to have its own distribution channels and be able to leverage other distribution channels too. The good news is that we live in a time when there's an abundance of content distribution channels that help us reach millions of people, and it's nothing like arranging a meeting with the chief buyer at Costco and going through pictures with all these buyers at all these big stores and retailers. Now, in the old days of content, pre-digital, distribution would have been through magazines and newspapers, the TV, radio. In other words, it wasn't as easy as it is today, and it was costly too. So today we simply must ensure that we're utilising content distribution channels. Otherwise, is there any point in creating content? So we need to make sure that people can find our content. We need to make it easy, and we need to reach our audience where they are. And that's when we'll start to see results, and your brand and business will grow, because the best content doesn't win. The best distributed content wins. Hey, just a little break from this week's episode to let you know about becoming a Content 10x Insider. If you want more content repurposing tips and advice, then why not join hundreds of business owners, marketers and content creators who get them delivered straight to their inbox once a week by subscribing to the Content 10x newsletter. As well as tips and advice, you get industry updates, inspiring stories, exclusive content, offers and more. You can subscribe at content10x.com/newsletter, and there's a link in the show notes too. Okay, back to this week's episode. So let's talk a bit about the various content distribution channels. Now, we're all different. If you write blog posts, live stream, create podcast episodes or videos, your channels might be slightly different for those pillar pieces of content, but the point is always the same, and the channels start to merge when we start to repurpose our content too. The more places you can get found, the more likely you are to meet your ideal clients where they are and with the content type that they most enjoy consuming. Now, arguably, the primary content distribution channel you should focus on is your website. We must have content on our own land. Your website is both a distribution channel and a hub for all of your content. So take a look at my blog pages, for example. Here I put the blog post, podcast episode, video if I've recorded one, for each piece of content. And if people know about Content 10x, they can come to the website and find all of my long form content in an easy to access place. And it's also how organic traffic finds my website as well and my business, because it gives me a presence on search engines, which really is another distribution channel in itself. So if someone didn't know about me before, they did when they saw me in a Google search return page. And then speaking of search engines, if you're a video creator, it's extremely important to get your videos on YouTube. So remember, this is the world's second largest search engine and is a must for any video creator looking to expand their audience. Google shows YouTube videos in search results because it owns YouTube, so it's going to favour the platforms it owns, so it can boost your visibility there too. So it's a real win-win. And there are other video distribution channels that might be appropriate for you to share your video content on too, depending on your industry and your topic. And then of course, channels that have a lot of opportunity are the social media channels. Now, these might be the first thing that spring to mind when I say content distribution. People will think, well, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and they all have huge numbers of daily average users and are designed, of course, to get your content seen. So think about how content goes viral on social media. That's thousands, if not millions, of eyes looking at you, interacting with you and learning about your brand. And that's the possibility you could unlock on social media. But I'm not saying that millions of people need to see our social media content, because millions of people are on those platforms, it doesn't mean that we get in front of all of them. It's not about quantity though, it's quality. It's not a volume play. We want to be finding the right people who we want to reach out to in the places that they hang out, and that's what's so good about social media. And the other great thing is you can distribute any content on social media too. So images and text posts and videos, audiograms, these different content types can go on different social media platforms. You just need to be aware of the parameters and the features of each platform and always create or repurpose respectfully for each one. But most of them are very multi-format at the moment. Now, if you have a podcast, there's loads of distribution channels for your podcast alone before you even start to repurpose your podcast. So you can get that podcast episode out on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Amazon Music, on iHeartRadio, on Stitcher, on Podbean, on Anchor, on SoundCloud. There's so many different places that you can distribute your podcast. So do get on all of them if you have a podcast. I see no reason why you shouldn't be on as many of those podcasting apps as possible to just reach as many people as possible. Another content distribution channel that should definitely not be forgotten about is your email list. Again, something that you own and you should never neglect. It's arguably your most important one because email subscribers are extremely likely to buy from you, and making sure that you nurture those prospects is paramount to your content marketing strategy. So just going back to the example earlier of a video creator getting your podcast on YouTube. So now you're looking at how to get it out to your email list. Now, you may not send the video to your email list, but you could write a short summary and send a link to the video, or you could send out a entire blog post. So write a blog post about the video and send the blog post via email. So it's all about the magic of repurposing and pairing this with distribution in the right way for you and the right way for your audience. Now, a good content distribution strategy should take into account both your existing audience and prospects, and also reaching brand new audiences, which is why it's good to prioritize both your own channels, as I mentioned, your website and email list, and then the third-party sites like the social media sites, also Reddit and Quora, Medium, industry sites, Discord communities, and so on. And as I just mentioned, those forum and Q&A sites like Reddit, like Quora, are little unusual for content distribution, but as Ross Simmons said in episode 209 of the Content 10X podcast, they're widely underutilized and brilliant for accessing really niche audiences. So for these sites, you do need to put in some time to create or repurpose your content in a way that is hyper platform specific. But if you do so, you might see huge results on these platforms. Ross shared lots of best practices for getting noticed on Reddit and Quora in episode 209. So go check that out, content10x.com/209. Now, ultimately, your content strategy isn't complete without a content distribution process that gets all of your amazing content out there, because getting your content to people is what really matters. Because the best product in the world is nothing if there's no way it can be brought to the market and sold. And the best content in the world is nothing if there's no way it can be consumed by people. I talk a lot about repurposing your content so that you can distribute it across all of the platforms that are important for you. So if you want to get more information about that, then do browse the archives of my website. There are hundreds of podcast episodes and videos and blog posts packed with information about creating, repurposing and distributing content across all of the platforms and more. And if you want everything in one neat place, then grab a copy of my book, content10x.com/book, or go to Amazon and search for Content 10X. So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I really hope you've enjoyed it and have managed to take some tips and advice away. Please do leave a rating and review. I'd really appreciate it, and it really helps me to reach more people with this podcast. I'm going to start reading out reviews on the show. So if you leave a review, then who knows, maybe I'll pick yours and read it out. As always, you can follow me on all of the social media platforms. I'm at Content 10X on them all. Or to find out how Content 10X can help you with your content repurposing and distribution, head to our website, content10x.com. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.